So, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Transformation Hour. You know, it is the show designed to help us connect so that individuals, businesses, and communities can develop, transform, and fly. I am your host, Jay Jackson, and our main topics on the Transformation Hour are leadership, personal development, entrepreneurship, or anything to help you get your mind, body, and soul right. And today's topic, check it out, guys. This one is going to be a unique topic because we're stepping outside of our normal community. And I know our special guest today is really excited because it's an opportunity for her to step outside of her normal community. But we're going to talk, today's topic is going to be the indigenous wisdom for modern times. And our special guest for today's episode is Dr. Anita Sanchez. Okay, guys, look, her background is amazing, but I want to make sure you guys understand. She is of Mexican American and Aztec heritage. Okay, she's committed to bringing indigenous wisdom and modern science support leaders to their teams, to your businesses, to just create an environment that's sustainable for spirituality and just social justice for the world. All right, she's experienced some childhood trauma, but she understands that what it takes to triumph over adversity, to go through post-traumatic growth and create a thriving life. So you guys know she is a perfect guest for what we like to do here on the Transformation Hour. She's a consultant, trainer, speaker, coach, renowned for her strategic insights into transformation, leadership, organizational culture, and benchmark for her international work in diversity, inclusion, and engagement in Fortune 100 firms. Guess what also, guys? She is a TED Talk expert. All right. Miss Anita, she's committed to doing business that is good for the world and creating innovative, inclusive environments where all people matter. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Transformation Hour. Dr. Anita Sanchez, how are you doing this morning, ma'am?
I am great, and what a welcome you gave me. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, madam. You deserve it. Your work speaks for itself, but I want to make sure those who aren't aware of who you are, they have an understanding of the superpowers that you have within inside of you, sharing your gifts and your talents with the world to make our universe a whole lot better. So as we kick off the show, I would like for you, if you will, just kind of share a little bit of your story, a little bit of your childhood to help the people really understand where you've come from, and we'll walk into where you are today.
Okay. Well, my childhood, I feel very blessed on one hand, and it wasn't all bright. So it's the light and dark is right there together, which I think is true for most of us, if not all of us. So on one hand, I had this wonderful heritage, as you talked about, Mexican American, huge family, 120 first cousins.
Whoa.
So it was fun growing up. When we had family reunion, we took over a park. It was great. And we would go visit my relatives, Osage relatives, who actually adopted us because we didn't have other Aztec people from our tribe. So we would visit them. So I'd learn all these amazing things. And dreaming was so important. That really came from the indigenous the most, is about opening up your spirit to the dream when our head is out of the way at night, and dream during the day too. But however, just allowing that. So that was beautiful. And then right beside that was this horrible secret that I held, which was from age 4 to 13, I was sexually abused and by my father.
Wow.
So how, feeling betrayed, and as a small child, not knowing anything else. So it was at that point, by about age 9, that in the midst of this beautiful other kind of belief system, the knowing how the world works, I also had this deep secret. And what began happening in me was the belief that I would never be free, that, that it was hopeless already at age 9. And then to complicate it all, and I'll stop with that to see what else you want to hear, but I think it's important for the listeners to know that this wasn't all rosy. This is somebody who just all of a sudden was working with Fortune 100 CEOs and their teams and going all over the world. At age 13, my father was murdered. It was in the 60s. So at the height of some of the race stuff, although we could say there's a height of it still happening.
Right.
And he was mistaken. He showed up the wrong place at the wrong time after work in the neighborhood bar for a beer, where earlier that day, a white man and a black man were having an argument. And while he was sitting there, the white man returned and just saw the profile on his dark skin and fired 2 bullets through him and killed him there on the spot. So the early years were so confusing. And yet what I realized is in the midst of the most horrible, and we can get into more detail because it's the gifts in that come into play and how they help me. But in the midst of the most horrible thing, we can also see the light, because in the deepest darkness, the light is the brightest. And that's not just a saying, that's the truth that I experienced. And it's a process. Rarely is it a boom, bang event. It's a process, and we have everything we need right here. Right here. And that's what I learned from Indigenous people, is there are 3 places I can count on to find wisdom. First and foremost is inside, the true Anita, that sacred self that we all have, the true spirit of Anita. The second place is in nature, right? Immersed in nature. You know, I've never had a tree lie to me. I've never had the grass or the earth lie to me. How many of us have lied to myself? I'm raising my hand.
Right.
You know, how many have had others lie to you? I'm raising my hand, right? But nature, and then that we're part of, such wisdom. And then the third place is true elders. And I'm talking about elders from all traditions, from all directions, black, red, yellow, and white, all 4 of those directions, who bring us this incredible wisdom. Remind us really that wisdom is already in us. But if we, confuse, the brain gets confused, these elders are able to help by just laying it up for us, not forcing anything, not judging, but just here it is. And then we get to choose to use it or not.
That's beautiful. I want to touch on elders, but before we touch on elders, I want to take maybe a half a step back and
Okay.
talk about that process. Will you share some of the practical steps that you had to take in your process of healing and coming out of that darkness into the light?
Yes. Well, some things took longer than others. In terms of so there's 2 major events. There's one, the abuse that I endured by my father.
Right.
And then the other one is the murder of my father. So the whole racism, all that stuff. So in the first one with my father, it actually happened faster, which one would think it would. Because death really doesn't end a relationship. It just makes it a little different to resolve.
Right.
But what I began realizing is that I had put up I called it my armor of illusion of separateness. And my armor, maybe some of your listeners and viewers can think about this armor we put up, was the sexual violence, the racism, sex, all these isms. I put up this armor, like, nobody's going to hurt me. But what happened is I began really getting in touch with my body, and I could feel like I was only breathing from the chest up. And I was starving myself. And what I realized about the armor is that it kept out a lot of bad stuff, but it also kept out the good stuff. And thank goodness I began seeing in nature, like, man, I breathe different here. Paying attention, really listening to myself. And then having other people show up in my life, teachers, sometimes it's people in museums, sometimes it's a total stranger. Or somebody's just saying, good morning, or you look like a really good person. Just things that would come and it would just start bumping against this armor that was like, wait a minute. So that would start coming down. And what I found is it started coming down is a lie. Let me tell you what's the lie. It's a lie that all Anita was an abused child. It's a lie that all Anita was is a target of racism, classism. It's a lie. So I thought at one time, part of the process, my well of joy was about, inch or two deep, maybe. That was on a good day. And my well of pain was this huge, infinite, overflowing thing. But as I began forgiving my father, understanding, not at all saying that what he did was right or anything else, but when I began to have compassion, I was like, he did the best he could. And I feel bad for him that he never got to reconcile his life.
Mm.
He was killed. But who knows? I don't know that he would have. That is not for me to determine. What was mine was releasing the pain.
Mm-hmm.
And as I released that, the wonderful thing about that is I began to see all the joy in my life. I'd be able to see who I really am, which is spirit and physical, not either or. What let me see is that my history was not just those things. I had to go back to the beginning, which is even going back to my ancestors, the strong, incredible roots, ceremony, ritual, understanding that we're all connected to everything, people, earth, and spirit. So that gives you a little bit of the process. I wouldn't trade the journey. It was just the happiness. And what I ended up finding out, you know what? These gifts, in particular, the gift of forgiving the unforgivable, was my path to freedom. It wasn't something outside of me. That path to freedom is from the inside out. Outside you deal with, but my true path came from the inside.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people have to understand the power of release, the power of forgiveness, and it really does start internally to kind of transform yourself inside in order for your physical world to start to appear differently to you and your perspective to change. That is an awesome explanation of that. So, in the your response to the process, the practical steps, you mentioned the people, which I'm going to tie that back into the elders as well. Um, how how important is it for our elders to share information, and then also, I'm saying as if I'm not an elder to others, but how important is it for us all to share information to those who are junior to us, and then those of us who are junior to be open and ready to receive information from those who are our elders?
Yes, and this is, it's very important, and it really requires sometimes is a shift.
Mm.
We're so much in our mind all the time, and our mind can play tricks on us. I'm not talking about getting rid of our brain or our mind. We need that. But what it requires the shift is also learning and knowing and being led, if not right beside the mind, ahead of it by the heart.
Mm.
And so when we open our heart, not just the mind and the cynical stuff that goes through, but the heart too, we'll be able to listen and receive. And elder, I think it's really important to understand. Elder is in the indigenous description of elder, it's anyone who is a tradition holder, a wisdom keeper, who has kept alive the original instruction, and that's from spirit, about the people, and that they have not lost connection with the earth. So elder, not just because you're older, does that make you an elder or that you're wise?
Mm.
It is also true that a young person can also be an elder and wise. So that's why we have to really open up and listen, because we're seeing the elder wisdom coming across the whole span of ages. A great example of that is Standing Rock. Look at all these young women, young girls, some of them teens, early 20s, started a whole world movement. I mean, the sacredness of the water and running, and they brought the different tribes together that hadn't, some of them had been fighting each other for some time. They brought in from all over the world, all the 4 directions. People came in to support them. And they are what I call young people with old spirits. They're elders rising. And now they spurred on what had begun in South America and Ecuador, the whole rights of nature, the whole thing that we belong to each other. We wouldn't be here if we didn't have all these things in nature. So I just think I'm so excited about people opening their hearts and minds to that. Really what it is put down this. I'm holding up my smartphone. I'm never going to give away my smartphone. I'm never going to give away my computer. However, you got to put them down, put it away, because you can't Google wisdom. But we can get quiet. We can open up and listen to elders, listen to this true sacred self that we are, and go into nature. And that smartphone is a disruptor, you know.
Yeah, it's amazing that you say that. I literally had this exact conversation with my daughter on yesterday, just to show you how spirit works. And I was explaining to her, she says, she had never heard God talk to her. And I said, well, baby, he talks to you all the time. It's just whether or not you are able to listen. And I said, oftentimes we're so distracted by television or the cell phone or, other people in their chatter, to where we're not able to sit still and clear our minds and allow ourselves to receive the message that is coming in. You're right. You're spot on. We have to minimize the distractions in order for us to really, truly connect with our divine selves and what we have internally. Miss Anita, I tell you, there are a lot of there's a lot of symbolism between the indigenous wisdom that you're sharing from your culture and the culture that I was brought up in. And, I'm originally from Birmingham, Alabama. I'm raised in the South, the Bible Belt, so to speak. Raised Baptist to Christianity and things of that nature. And it just amazes me how there's so many similarities between the indigenous wisdom that you're sharing and what I've been taught, brought up to believe. So you talk about how important it is in terms of our elders to just give the information and then allow the individual to just take it and receive it and run with it. And then you also mentioned some of the, I guess, the lies that we've been told. But what's your view and perspective on some of those lies that we've been told that have created separation amongst the people?
Yeah. Well, I remember when my father was murdered, and what happened afterwards, I need to say, a week later, you think the murder was enough, but a week later, we had a knock at our door. I was 13 at the time, and there was this white woman there and this young white boy who was probably about my age. And the woman identified herself as the wife and son of the man who murdered my father.
Wow.
Yeah, it was heavy. And the screen door is there, and she's saying, Mrs. Sanchez, I just had to tell you, my husband is a good man. He never would have killed your husband. If he knew he was Mexican, Native American, he thought he was black. And she kept going on, and I felt my mom's body shaking. And she's very Christian, very Catholic. So she's both Native American and the Catholic. And I remember her screaming at this total stranger, which is not what my mom done. And she just said, stop, you don't even know what you're saying. You don't even know the hatred you're teaching your son. I want you to know I'm going to try really hard to pray for your soul that you get off my porch. And that night, it plays for me often. She sat us 6 kids down. We're all from 9 to 18. And she said, I need to tell you something. You need to really listen. A white man murdered your father, not the white race. He did that. Now, she opened the newspaper, the Kansas City Star. I grew up in Missouri. And there was my father in the neighborhood bar with a pool of blood. She said, now this is racism. The dead deserve respect, and their families, you and me, deserve respect. But anytime a person of color, she didn't say person of color, she said Black people, Asian people, Native Americans, Mexicans, when we die in violent death, they put it all on the paper. But if a white person dies, they don't show that. This we have to stop. That was so important to me because it was with hurt and mistreatments, we begin to tell ourselves lies, again, putting on that armor that we're separate, that all of this is dangerous. If we start working as I started living in a world thinking it was dangerous, oh my gosh, then the behavior that comes out is the mirror. I start attracting that very same thing. And I'm not talking woo-woo, I'm talking about literally you do. But as I saw that that's one of the lies, I began to see, wait a minute, this is another lie. I grew up in an all-Black neighborhood. We're the only non-Black family in this neighborhood.
Okay.
It started out all white. We moved in, the Mexicans, the whites disappeared. That's, we know that pattern still happens.
Right.
So anyway, so I grew up. And so one of the lies to me that didn't make any sense was, why do they keep talking about Black people history and start with slavery? That's a lie. Now, if you want to talk about Black people in this country, many of them, yes, were brought as slaves in the horrors. We need to learn. I'm not saying don't teach that, but do not lie to me and say that's the beginning of Black people. That is a lie. That is not, that is a event that happened that we still have the structures and systems in place that we need to change. But that's a lie. Same things for Native people. Oh, well, we've all put in reservations. Wait a minute, that's not where my relatives started. So we need to know history so we don't think today came out of a void. But you be careful. The lies is telling you where that history began. Get quiet. Go inside. You go, wait a minute. They're not talking about my spirit. My spirit didn't start as that. Slave or genocide. And the reality of all of that, and for Asian people, yellow peril, I mean, we can go on and on, is that what was forgotten, even by those folks that they turned on their whole spirit because they didn't start as oppressors either. But what happened is they forgot how resilient we are, how some parts of this can't be touched. And in indigenous perspective, we have a saying, they tried to bury us, but they forgot we were seeds. And so the miracle is how many of us are still around. And I'm not trying to romanticize. We have all sorts of problems in indigenous communities, alcohol, drug, suicide, and all those horrible things that we need to address. However, the miracle is, and I think that's true in Christianity teaches, all the great traditions teach this. So whether you call it God, Jesus, Allah, Buddha, universe energy, it's a teaching that's something greater than what we're just now here seeing in the physical. And believe me, that spirit isn't just for later. That is at work right now. You and I are sitting here. Isn't that wonderful?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I love your explanation of all of that. It is a difficult challenge for me, having, that wisdom that you referred to earlier, and being in a culture and an environment where it's difficult to break through to some people to help them understand that, there have been lies that have been told to us. And oftentimes we perpetuate those lies throughout generations, and we don't realize that we are cursing the future as we continue to perpetuate those lies. And so I love the way that you broke that down to help everyone understand that we have to allow ourselves to be open to new information, to new wisdom, to new knowledge, so that we don't continue those same unhealthy patterns. So one of the major topics that you like to talk about is climate change is spiritual. And I think all things in terms of change, whether climate change, racism, classism, poverty, you name it, I believe truly my personal view on this, it is all spiritual. It comes down to an individual's spirit, their heart, and how they approach their day to day. But will you please, help everyone understand what you mean by climate change is spiritual and what we can do to actually transform our climate?
Yes. Well, I do believe that climate change is a spiritual issue. It also is a concrete physical issue. However, for some time, we already have the knowledge of how to reverse global warming. In fact, recently a book came out called Drawdown. Scientists from all over the world, 6 years studying, came up with 100 things that we already are doing, but we could do collectively, do in a bigger way that will reverse global warming, not slow it down, not mitigate it. We're talking about reversing. That's phenomenal hope. However, what we don't have yet is the spiritual part, which is the collective will, the individual and collective will to do anything. And we need to understand that even if we do these things to reverse global warming, if we don't change our mindset, if we don't connect up our heart and our head, if we don't connect up that we're part of this earth, we're not separate from it. You know, if you listen to Neil deGrasse Tyson on television, you know, the cosmologists, astrophysicists, physicists, they're all biologists, they're all saying the same thing. We are made up of all the elements of the stars. We're of the earth, everything. You know, there's so actually very little difference between us. Although there's all the stories written of how we are so different. I don't want to get rid of the differences. I love that we have different races and different, you know, men and women, the different gender expansion and all the different things that we have. And we need to understand that we are part of, not separate from, the earth. I have a quick story. So once a year, I get the honor of volunteering my time. I take a group in June or July down to Ecuador in the sacred headwaters of the Amazon region. And when I go there, I love it. I bring people, families, business people, and they get immersed into really begin to understand their connection, the importance of nature and the importance of culture. And it's so amazing within a very short time, people every time start to understand, wait a minute, these folks, these Ashwar and Swapra people who we spend time with, as they speak and describe, or it's all translated, they don't talk about living in the rainforest or taking care of the rainforest and that, but they talk about taking care of themselves, which is taking care of the rainforest, taking the rainforest together. They talk about being part of. And I wonder what our world would be like. And it's already happening, but I would love for it to accelerate. As we talked about the earth, the water, the animals, you know, all of this as part of us, then it would be different. And in indigenous, all around the world, on all the different traditions, there was this relationship with nature, knowing that we are part of. So we need to get that back and not think, oh, things just come from going to the store and it's all wrapped in plastic and all that. And we're seeing that. We're seeing people starting to do gardens in the middle of cities, you know, and in schools. And I think this is so critical for us to be in gratitude of our relationship, our being part of the earth. So it is a spiritual issue, and I agree with you. Everything comes back to it, and it doesn't negate that we're also in this physical world, that we have to be in right relationship and in positive action. But we need to fix that part. So I do believe climate change, global warming, reversing that is a spiritual issue, and one that we have everything it takes to do it. We have all the muscle already, all the heart.
So, what are some of the things that people can do to help them better understand that the way that we treat our world reflects the way that we treat ourselves? Like, what are some of the practical, you know, tips that you can give the viewers and the listeners so they can really start to, you know, do that self-reflection and self-examination to really kind of pull out some of the unhealthy habits that they have?
Yeah. Well, I know with my Indigenous and Mexican American, we would celebrate a lot. I mean, we could have a horrible thing happen, but we're celebrating at funerals. Every time is a time for celebration. Why? Because it is. Because it's life. It's part of the circle, right? And so part of it is being in gratitude. And so if you don't have a party every day, it is a party you wake up. Whatever time of day or night you wake up. and just list, even if it's just 3 things. My practice is I just list as many things as I can. I'm breathing. My eyes are open. Thank you, toes, for being able to wiggle. Look at this beautiful, I have clean oxygen. I have clean air to breathe. Thank you. It's beautiful tree, whatever it is. Thank you for my friends. Thank you for my 2 sons. Thank you for the house. I mean, when we start listing that, people are like, oh, why am I wasting my time? No, you begin, again, it's taking away the lies. You begin to see all of the abundance in everything we have here that is enough, rather than on this, I need more, 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 and always not, never satisfied, but rather being, wow, this is what I have. And then I can move from here in that spirit of gratitude. So when we do that, I think that's one of the things. The other thing for everyone, and we're doing it right now, is to realize one of the lies is that we're alone. Now, we may get lonely. That's part of human beings. We can get in that, but we're never alone. We always have support. You and I are breathing now. Some people think, well, that's just the air conditioning system. But, excuse me, that's the trees and the plants taking the carbon that we've exhaled, transforming that into oxygen that we then can breathe. Thank you, trees. Thank you, earth. Thank you, plants. I'm able to breathe. So just be conscious of your breathing. And I have oftentimes in my podcasts with corporations in the past, I would start, and I'd always start with, what are the things that all human beings need to be alive, to thrive? First is oxygen, but we breathe shallow. Like, pay attention to how you're breathing. Inhale through the nose and out through the mouth. Indigenous, my elders have taught us always to breathe that way. Mimic nature, see the animals. Look at babies. They breathe with their whole body. They don't hold their stomach tight and flat. They breathe. We need to do that. And now we know also that changes the mind. That opens up, slows down your amygdala, that triggers, it's always looking for safety. It opens up your frontal cortex so that you can have more clarity, ability to be present to what really is, instead of being triggered by, fear and all these other things. So we need that. So that's practice, is gratitude, your breathing. I'm telling you things that doesn't require you to go buy anything.
Right.
It's not about consuming.
Right.
It's about getting still and using what we have. So I think that's a couple of things. And then the third thing I'll leave with the group is listening. Foundational to all the gifts, that 4 gifts that I write about in the book, is listening. Now, when people think listening, they may immediately think about listening to other, which is really very, very important. I truly have come to believe that listening is one of the greatest gifts that you can give to another, but it's also one of the greatest gifts that you can give to oneself. So we're not listening to ourselves. I watch myself. What, Anita, you've not been listening to what your body's saying. You're all of a sudden you're up 10 pounds. Hello. Okay. And I'm not talking about all this is going to have to be thin or lard, whatever it is, but it's about being healthy. And so if you're listening to your body, then you would know that, right? And you'd be listening to your head and heart. My uncle used to say when he talked to us, often the toughest, but always the most rewarding journey in life is the journey from the head to the heart and back again. And I wish many of those journeys for us, and I wish that for all your viewers too, and for you. And when we do that, how we do that is by listening. So really, listening means closing the mouth, not saying anything, but just allowing to be present to what is happening. And then I know, oh, it's time to go to the doctor, or no, it's time for me to get up and move. I need to go out and walk around the block. Look how things get crazy at work. I often, I work with pretty amazing people, and I'll say, step outside. What? I'm in the middle trying to do this. I know, step outside. Just promise you, for 1 week, step outside. And then for 1 week, walk around the block when that happens. And they go, it's amazing. I come back in, I'm in a different, yes. That spirit, you're got to get this all reconfigured. We get crazy, overwhelm ourselves. but we have everything here for us. So I hope
Absolutely.
everything out, gratitude, listening, and yeah, and going into nature, and yeah, all those things are really important.
Yeah. So I want to touch on something just very briefly before we
Mhm.
go into the next segment.
Okay.
Uh, it takes a lot of responsibility and discipline to do the things that you just referred to. And I know the tasks are very small. Being, grateful, very small. Listening, very small. Important, but very small. But it's a huge responsibility, and it requires a ton of discipline. What are some of the things that you yourself, or whether you're utilized for yourself personally or through your teachings, that you have utilized to help people become more responsible and improve and increase their discipline so that they can ensure that their results can be sustained long term?
Hmm. Well, I think one of the things is to get through the assumption. Like, so I start my day with half hour to 1 hour of just practice. However, I'm in a blessings. I am in a situation. My kids are grown. I can carve out that. I can wake up. But some folks, man, they're working hard. They're getting by. They're trying to, take care of family and family's family and everything else. So it only takes a minute. So yes, it's wonderful if you could meditate or go and prepare for 20 minutes. But if you just once or twice a day for 30 seconds or 1 minute, just stop. Lower, close your eyes so you don't have distractions, or if you're in nature, be there and see its beauty. If it is a single flower or tree, and just breathe in and thank you, God, thank you, Allah, thank you, whatever it is, university, thank you, body, for being whatever it is. That's it. Move on. And that's what I learned from indigenous, my elders, and that's true of the different traditions. It's these little ceremonies. We call them ceremonies. There's some big ceremonies too, but just those little ceremonies begin the practice in life. So don't psych yourself out to start out with, I don't have that much time. We're talking about people who are wealthy and carefree and whatever else. I'm saying that. So that's a little projection because that's my head would go to. That's a white thing. That's a what thing. That's a rich
Right.
thing. And hello, that's a human thing. Why shouldn't I benefit from all this knowledge that we have? I'm meant to. I love myself. That's the other thing that people do. When you're brushing your teeth, morning and night, I love me. I love me. Because part of this is why we're hurting ourselves and each other and separateness and stuff is, do I love myself? And do I love myself enough to care for myself? So sometimes just even like a little thing like, I love me. I love me. Okay, I love this little belly that's on me, this big belly that's on me. Love you. Thank you. You're digesting the food for me. Thank you. Just embrace yourself. So I think that's a big thing. And I'm so glad you asked that question because it is just we make it so big. I'll tell you a quick story because a couple of weeks ago, I was trying to figure out, how can I be more effective of sharing messages to people? In particular, people of color, but white folks too, about this race and how do we undo this and naming the doubt that comes up. Even sometimes I've done this work for all my life and professionally for 40 years. And sometimes doubt comes in. That doubt is a scary, paralyzing thing. It's like, okay, I see you. You go over there for now. I'll pick you back up. I'm sure it's going to come back, but I'm going here right now. You just there. So I went outside and I sat by a tree and I thought, okay, this is where you're trying to force it. I sat there, okay, I'm going to meditate now. Trees never lie to me. Trees are going to come to me, tell me how to do this better. What else should I be telling the people? What else should be coming through? And I'm sitting there, nothing's coming, nothing's coming. Come on, tree, I'm ready. Nothing's coming. I start focusing more and more on my breath. All of a sudden, I start laughing. And what I got was as I was inhaling and breathing, it became deeper and deeper. And I realized as I was inhaling, I just did that 23andMe, like who I am genetically and stuff. I took in the oxygen and I could sense spirit saying, all right, of this oxygen, 39% of it is going to the indigenous part of you. All right, 42% of it is going to go to the Iberian, the Mexican, the Spaniard, that part of you. All right, 8% is to the Greek. 2% is North African. Yeah, it just goes on and on. 2% is Jewish. And I was like, This is ridiculous. The oxygen doesn't know us and them and that and those. It only understands we. It only understands totality. And I was like, thank you. Thank you for reminding me of that. So it doesn't take a whole lot. It doesn't have to take a whole lot of time. So there is no excuse. And I think the other thing I'm thinking about Christians is that pick up the Bible, pick up the book and just read a phrase. Everybody can have a chance to do that. Or the Quran, read a piece out of the Quran. Whatever it is. Taoism, read something of Lao Tzu's. Inspirational. None of this takes very much time. But it is a practice, you're right. It's about doing it every day. We can't stop breathing, we'll die. We need to do this for ourselves every day.
Absolutely. For those of you guys who might be in your infancy stage and new to your journey of transformation, your growth walk in terms of spirituality, if you have to, set a reminder in your cell phone on the calendar to constantly just say, hey, I have to meditate or I have to read my spiritual text. And I want to make sure you guys understand that with whichever spiritual text you follow, it's spiritual, but it is also practical. All right. So don't just read it as a book of stories that are mystical and magical stories that are just impossible to believe. Read the stories and then go back and say, okay, how can I now take what I just read and practically apply it to some area of my life, or even take it and teach it to someone else so that they can practically apply it to some area of their lives. I promise you, you will experience phenomenal results if you do that. I just wanted to share that really quick.
Absolutely.
So, Miss Anita, you talked about projecting, which a lot of people aren't familiar with projecting, but I want you to share a little bit on your definition of what projecting is, but then I want you to follow up with what has been the biggest mindset shift that you've had to make throughout your journey.
Yeah, so projecting means that what's happening with me, I put it on you. I act as if it's you, but the reality is if I got quiet and still and listened, I was like, wait a minute, you can do anything. You're just being you. This is about me. And so oftentimes we'll project our joy onto other people. We also project our pain onto other people and our suffering.
Right.
And so this projection thing is important to understand. My husband and I both have our PhDs in organizational development, which requires a lot of business, but also a lot of psychology. So our kids learned about projection really early. And so that even in school, in elementary school, I said, well, stop projecting on me. And then teachers were like, how did that kid learn that projecting? But it's an important word because it's like, I always ask myself, now, is this mine or is this really this other person? And I'll tell you, more often than not, it's me and me making up a story and, oh, wow, it's amazing what we can do. So it's asking yourself those questions. So that's important. In terms of your other question, which was, what was the one biggest?
What the biggest mindset shift that you've had to make throughout your journey?
Yeah. I think it's interwoven. It's about that I am enough, that I'm spirit, I'm love, that whole notion. That is true, that's realer than anything, along with I have choice. Once I stop thinking, oh, they're doing this to me, and they're doing this to me, and they're doing this to me, and it's all them, and that, instead took ownership, like, wait a minute, I can't control all this. Like if I could, I'd stop a lot of the stuff that's going on of hurting of people and nature and everything. But I do have choice about how I react and what kind of positive action I take or don't take. That's my responsibility. So when I began doing that, of course, at first I was scared about it, Not about the spirit part, because I began to realize, wow, that's really, how did that work out? How did I not have work for 3 years during recession and didn't lose my home? My kids still end up going to school. Yeah, we didn't eat out anymore. Yeah, we didn't buy any more video games. Yeah, a lot of stuff stopped. How did that happen? Well, some could say, well, you saved your money. But yeah, spirit was there helping us too.
Right.
It was helping us to get through. So we get to choose. And during that time, I realized so much then. When everything fell away, my husband and I started volunteering because we have all these skills. And so we found Pachamama Alliance, who's about, saving the rainforest for all the lungs of our earth, for all of us, and preserving cultures and social justice. All these different, we were out there training. So those 3 years, we didn't lose a beat of being a training, actually even doing it internationally. We volunteer, they just pay our expenses. We train up all these trainers locally. We were doing all of that. And that realizing, I have choice about how I react to things. I have choice about what I want to create, what I want to focus on. And hear this, I'm not at all talking about denial, what is the reality of stuff. I want to see that. But along with seeing that, I want to put I call it positive imbalance. I want to use my energy, what I want to create, rather than cycling downward. But I'm taking this into account. Believe me, my mother, when she said, hey, all white men killed my father, not the white race. But understand, she also said, there are people out there that are ignorant, they're lost, and they do want to hurt you. So you need to be watchful. Okay, I got it. I'm not going to worry about them, but I'll keep my senses open, and I'm going to go create what I need to create. And that's I think so. That whole thing that I truly am spirit, I am lovable, I am worthy. I'm not all this other stuff that's happened to me, and I have choice. It's so empowering. I have the choice to be good medicine to people and myself, or to be bad medicine. I choose to be good medicine. And forgive me when I'm bad medicine. I'm going to be aware of that and shift and be good medicine again.
I love it. What my takeaway from that is and it's a perfect segue. My takeaway was that you guys decided to be a gift to others, even though you could have probably used some gifts and some opportunities, but your gifts of your skills, your education, your experience, your talents, by giving those to others, everything opened itself up and created phenomenal opportunities for you and your husband. And now you're doing amazing things continuously internationally. And so, speaking of gifts, talk to us about this phenomenal book, The Four Sacred Gifts, and what inspired you to write the book. Share a few details, if you will, and then tell the people how they can go out and get their copy.
Yes. So, Four Sacred Gifts, Indigenous Wisdom for Modern Times. And you can learn lots more about it by just going to foursacredgifts.com. And do go there, because you also can get a free downloadable song. It's a beautiful song sung by Indigenous and non-Indigenous people from all four directions. It's beautiful. How it came to be, if we have enough time, I want to say sort of quickly, it was 2 parts. One, I write business reports and things like that and training and stuff. So I'm not this kind of writer usually, but in the last couple of years, it seems I am.
Mhm.
My mother died about 8 years ago. And before she died, one of the things, she wasn't sad about dying. She was ready. But she was sad that her great-grandchildren would know her. And so I said, okay, Mom, I'll write about you. I'll write a book and I'll give it to the family. So after she died, it took me 2 years of grieving. Really miss my mom. And then I started to write, and her story wasn't coming out. It was my story. And I kept trying to write. And so I said, Mom, I know you're listening. I'm going to do your book. But I need to do mine right now, I think. And so then I began writing about these gifts that Indigenous elders gave me back in the mid-90s, from a prophecy that it was time for the people from the 4 directions, from the 4 races, with their medicine to come together and to be one human family. And we hear that all the time, oneness, family. But how do you do that? These elders from the 27 elders from different parts of the world put in 4 gifts into this hoop with 100 eagle feathers hanging from it. That spirit told them to put in there. So the first gift is the power to forgive the unforgivable. The second gift is the power of healing. Third gift is the power of unity. And the fourth gift is the power of hope in action. And they said, Spirit told, because I asked, how did you decide on 4? And they all like, silly, Spirit told us. There was no problem. These were the 4. If you use these gifts, humankind, all human beings must use these gifts because we have forgotten that we are connected to ourselves, to people, earth, and spirit. Use these gifts and you will remember our connection. And harmony and peace will be able to be sustained. And so I began using it because back in the 90s, I began losing hope that we're going to make any change. And I got these gifts and I went, oh, I'm going to start using them. And then I started using them in my work with executives. And everywhere I went all over the world, people would, wait a minute, those gifts, let me write them down. Forgive the unforgivable, power of healing, power of unity, power of hope in action. Very simple. But when you begin using them, the lies start to fade away, the power of them. The true of who we are comes forward. So it's a beautiful book. It's a really, I feel very honored. I see myself as a messenger, not as an elder. You said that earlier about you too. First of all, elder in my community, no one ever calls themselves. Other people will call you elder. But I don't believe in false humility either. It's time we step up and share our gifts and things. So I am a messenger for Indigenous people all over the world who, anyway, I feel like now that I'm on Twitter, like, go there, go there, go there. There's all these places you could go.
Right.
And it's beautiful. And so do love it. And at the end of the book, this is a kind of nice little story. The end of the book, I realized it came in with these Indigenous elders all over the world, these 4 gifts. I show how to use them. But it needed to close with Indigenous elders too. So I took me a couple more months of writing and I searched around the world and I came up with 16 elders, amazing Zulu tradition, from the White Samis, Norway, from Tibet, Japanese Shinto priest, Aboriginal, I mean, just all these amazing elders that came forward and put their wisdom in there. And then closed it with those young people. So I have 3 young people in my book, a 19-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 22-year-old, all who are at Standing Rock. And their words alone, just the wisdom. Yeah. So forsacredgifts.com, FOUR, sacred, SACRED, gifts.com. And you can go there and you can either buy it, you can learn more about the book. The other thing you can do is if you don't have the funds to buy the book, these gifts are yours. We need you out there using them. But you can go and learn more by going to my Facebook author page at Anita Sanchez, PhD. ANITA SANCHEZ, PhD. At Anita Sanchez, PhD. Go there, like it, I would appreciate it. But and there are a lot of little short videos, just 90 seconds on some of them, but you're going to start learning about these gifts and how to use them, and elders' wisdom from all over the world.
Awesome. Now, is that the social media handle that you just gave for Facebook? Is that the same handle for, say, Twitter and LinkedIn and any other platform you're on?
For Twitter, it's at Dr. Anita Sanchez. So at Dr. Anita Sanchez. So at Dr. Anita Sanchez is the Twitter. And please, I'd love to be tweeting with you and learning from you and sharing everything that I'm learning as I go along. And of course, the Facebook fan page. You can also Facebook fan me. My personal Facebook page is at Dr. Anita Sanchez. I just have more of the videos and stuff about the gifts on my author page.
Gotcha.
PhD, yes.
Okay.
But where you're going to learn the most, where you're going to learn all of that, if you just remember forsacredgifts.com, because when you go there, it'll have my Twitter, my Facebook, my LinkedIn, it'll have all that stuff as well.
Got
You'll be able to.
Gotcha. All right. So before we get you up out of here, there's one final question I do want to ask you, and I want to know to you, Miss Dr. Anita Sanchez, what does it mean to be extraordinary?
Oh. It's kind of funny. To be extraordinary means to embrace who you really are, because we're all extraordinary, right? That's what I believe. So to be extraordinary is to take who you are, that spirit and all those physical and those gifts, and just live them. Live them and share them, use them for yourself. That's what it means to be extraordinary. And with that, there's a certain amount of contentment and joy and happiness, and also an ability to use your gifts to create more happiness, to right things that are out of right relationship, so social just. So what I'm about is creating an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, and socially just human presence on this beautiful Mother Earth of ours. And the time is now.
Awesome. 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 Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your gifts, for being a messenger to those who are ready to receive your message today. I'm grateful for you. I learned a lot today. Um, I'm in awe, to be honest with you. There's just so many nuggets that you dropped throughout this particular conversation. So I am grateful, 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 grateful for you.
And thank you. I'm grateful to you. You are a gift in so many ways. As I mentioned earlier, I needed your presence, and I also got filled up. So thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. I appreciate that. And to those of you guys who are listening and or watching watching this broadcast on YouTube, thank you for investing your time today with us. We hope this conversation added value to help you get from where you are to where you want to be in your life, your business, or even your career. And if you're searching for more in-depth information, go over to theFourSacredGifts.com to learn more about Dr. Anita Sanchez so that you can improve and strengthen your gifts, your talents, so that you can go out and help transform lives and businesses throughout the world. This has been the Transformation Hour, the show designed to help us connect so that individuals, businesses, and communities can develop, transform, and fly. I'm your host, Jay Jackson. Till next time, you guys have a great one. Peace.